Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of BadgerBlitz TV. I am Jake Kokorowski, senior writer at BadgerBlitz.com. Of course, your home for all things Wisconsin Badgers, Wisconsin football, Wisconsin basketball, Wisconsin recruiting. Happy Tuesday evening. We are recording here on the west side of Madison. Big game coming up. It's Axe Week, folks. We're going to have Alex Carlson from the Gopher Report, Minnesota Rivals, on in just a second. But Wisconsin, by the way, now number 14 in the latest college football playoff poll, which was released on Tuesday night. But let's dig into real quick. Obviously, a lot is at stake for Wisconsin and Minnesota on Saturday. Paul Bunyan's Axe. It's the 131st meeting between the two schools. Wisconsin has a 2-game advantage so far. And then on top of that, who goes to Indianapolis and represents the Big Ten West. That will be decided as well. But some basics. Saturday, November 27th at 3 p.m. Central Time. It'll be at Huntington Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. How to watch, it'll be on Fox. And how to listen, Badger Sports Network, for those wanting to have the Wisconsin broadcast with obviously Matt LePay, Mike Lucas, but also Learfield nationally. Odds right now, according to the Action Network, Wisconsin 6.5-point favorites. And with that, we bring in our good friends just west of the Mississippi River. We have Alex Carlson on. Alex, thanks for making time for us this evening. And Minnesota comes in 7-4, 5-3 in the Big Ten. How would you describe the year so far for PJ Fleck in his program?
You know, it's been a little bit of an up and down year. I think everyone coming into this season had high hopes for the program and thought there could be a pretty good year. Obviously, you have all 5 linemen returning. Tanner Morgan, who's now a third-year starter, has been returning. Defensively, I think they added a few pieces that really got the people excited. So I think there was a lot of optimism coming into the season. And for the most part, the team has played, pretty well and beaten some quality opponents. But then it always goes back to a couple of those, the Bowling Green games kind of seems to be that one stain that the Gophers haven't been able to shake all season. And then, unfortunately, another disappointing loss against Illinois at home a couple of weeks ago. So it's been a little bit of up and down year. Obviously, dropping the game at Iowa, last week, or not this past weekend, but the one prior to that. Minnesota no longer has the opportunity to kind of control their own destiny within the West. But obviously, there's still a lot at stake going forward for the program. I think they're excited. Obviously, whenever Wisconsin comes to town, there's always a little bit of extra emphasis and enthusiasm. So.
And I was there back in 2019 and seeing that the college game day there, the atmosphere was just crazy. The snow falling. It was a winter wonderland. I know it went Wisconsin's way, but it was one of those things, those great atmospheres for college football that you absolutely, this is why we cover college football for those type of feelings. And, I guess Alex looking at the offense for Minnesota right now, averaging about 26.4 yards per contest. The rushing game, we talk about how good Wisconsin's running game is, but if you take a look at Minnesota's, they're not that far behind. 204.3 yards per contest. That's 23rd in the FBS, one of the best in the Big Ten. And they're also about almost 4.5 yards per carry, 4.4-ish. Passing yards, it is complementary football to an extent. 163.6 yards per game with Tanner Moore, with Minnesota in the passing game there. Third down conversions, you're looking at 45.2%. Which is great for an offense in terms of moving the chains. And Minnesota, for that matter, is third. If I'm not mistaken, they're third in the nation in time of possession, right? They're first in the Big Ten, and Wisconsin is second, for that matter, 7th in the FBS there. Sacks allowed, 17. Turnovers, they have only coughed it up 10 times in 11 games. And I think that's going to be huge for Wisconsin and Minnesota, who can take advantage of that stat for that, in that end. But with looking at this offense, you and I have talked about it in a written Q&A, and that'll be up tomorrow on BadgerBlitz.com. But this running back room has dealt with so much. This offense has dealt with so many weapons being out for the year, or for like Cam Wiley transferring out. How have they continued to be dominant up front, in their ground attack? And what do they do? And I take it, a lot of it goes back to that offensive line you mentioned before.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously that position's just kind of been snake bitten this year for the team. I mean, to lose, obviously in the first game of the year, you lose Mo Ibrahim, who's third team All-American last year. And if that's not, if that's not bad enough for a team, or that's not a big enough loss, you get a couple more. Bryce Williams, Trey Potts go down, and of course Cam Wiley unfortunately transfers. But I think, for one thing, obviously the offensive line is a ton of credit. These are guys who, a lot of these guys are fifth-year seniors who came back, obviously had the extra year from 2020 that they wanted to utilize. So a lot of them came back for another, fifth, sometimes even sixth year in certain cases. The right guard, Connor Olson, actually just set the Big Ten record for starts for an offensive lineman last week, 56. So, these guys have played, 3-4 years of football together, a lot of continuity on the offensive line. And they were actually ranked number 1 on Pro Football Focus's offensive line rankings list as well. So I think that's probably been the biggest thing, is just the continuity and the depth and the veteran, leadership up front has really helped kind of stabilize that room. But then also, I think it just goes to show that Minnesota's recruited really well at the running back position specifically, to be on number 5, number 6 running back, both of them freshmen, and to still be able to, be third in the conference in rushing and still be able to put up over 200 yards a game on the ground. I think it just shows that the team has recruited really, really well at that position, and it's paying off.
And within that too, let's take a look at this defense then for Minnesota, which everyone talks about Wisconsin having a great, one of the better defenses in the best defenses in the nation right now, even after that 452-yard performance by Nebraska last weekend and gave up 28 points to Adrian Martinez and the Huskers offense, and needed a goal, nearly a goal line stand to prevent a loss that would have completely changed the direction of what could be a season where they reel off 8 consecutive wins, and whatnot there. But I guess now looking at this defense, though, for Minnesota, no slouches either, right? This is a very stout, to say the very least, unit. 13th in the FBS in points per game allowed. Look, I have this slide up here right now. 103.6 yards per game allowed rushing, which is, under 4 yards per carry there. That's 12th in the FBS. Passing yards per game. Still, Wisconsin's, one of the top units. Well, so is Minnesota, 13th in the nation, just under 186 yards allowed. Their opponents are moving the chains on third down about 36.5% of the time. Sacks they have about 20 in 12 games, so under 2. But they've also created 14 turnovers, so they're +4 in turnover margin heading into this game. What makes this, in your eyes, Alex? Just what makes this unit so stout, and just what has it done so well this year, and who should fans watch for on Saturday?
So I think part of it too, so there's probably a couple of different things. I think first off, transfers have really, really bolstered this unit. Minnesota was able to get a guy like Jack Gibbons, who was I think it was a 3-year starter, a 2-time captain at Abilene Christian University. He had over 250 career tackles at Abilene Christian. Obviously wanted maybe a bigger opportunity to play at a Big Ten school for his extra eligibility year. He comes here and he's been, one of the best players, if maybe arguably the best player on the defense this season. He leads the team in tackles. So that was a transfer that really, really has worked out well for the team. Another guy named Niles Pinkney at the defensive tackle position. He came from Clemson. So he was a rotational guy at Clemson, wanted to be able to come to a university and have like a starting role where he could really solidify himself. He's come in and been the starting 3 tech since day one, and he's really bolstered that interior unit. So I think a couple of transfers have really, really worked out for the team, and even getting guys like that, I think, have allowed maybe other players who are, younger, maybe redshirt freshmen or redshirt sophomores at the linebacker and defensive tackle spot. It's kind of allowed them to move aside and not have to be the guy. They're allowing those other transfers to be the kind of the guys at those positions, and then they can play off of them, which I think has helped them maybe gain some confidence and not, be thrust into a role that's too much. So, and then also I think part of it too is that this was a defensive unit that had to play a lot of guys last year. And last year, Minnesota went 3-4 and defensively was not very good last year. But I think, part of the fruits of the labor, if you will, was they were forced to play a lot of young guys, a lot of freshmen, a lot of redshirt freshmen, a lot of redshirt sophomores. And, while maybe last year they struggled a little bit, I think that helped them grow and maybe confidence-wise, another year now of kind of, starting and being in the mix, and the game slows down a little bit for them. And so they've really, really grown on that side. So, I mean, besides, Jack Gibbons and Niles Pinckney are probably the two of the watch. Boye Mafe is another one. He's a defensive end that leads the team in tackles for loss with 9 and sacks with 6. He has a chance to be a draft pick, maybe a second day draft pick, or maybe a early in the third day draft pick this spring if he ends the season strong. And then in the secondary, Tyler Newbin is actually a guy who he's third on the team in tackles, first on the team in interceptions at the safety position. Really, really improved from a year ago and has really put it together a nice season. So those are some of the main guys to watch out for on Saturday.
One last couple questions for you before we let you go, Alex. Keys to the game for Minnesota to, which it would be an upset right now. What would it take in your eyes for keys to the game for the Gophers to not just regain the axe again, but also, spoil Wisconsin's, chance to just punch their ticket to Indianapolis with an outright win on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it's Minnesota and Wisconsin are, we talked about it a little bit, statistically really similar. They actually are pretty similar teams. Like I said, first 1 and 2 in the Big Ten in time of possession. They're both very run heavy and do a very good job of it. And defensively, they're both very stout, against the run, but also just in general. So, and they both kind of struggle to have a consistent passing game. So, honestly, I think they are pretty similar in that regard. They kind of want to do the same things. Control the clock, limit possessions, make you make mistakes, and kind of make you play at their pace. So I think it's honestly going to come down to turnovers. I think if one team is able to, maybe win the turnover battle 3-1 or 2-0, and really get some short fields and get some scoring opportunities, I think that will go a long way. And then also, I think just, the passing game, which for both schools has struggled a little bit. I think whichever team is able to make more. And it doesn't have to be necessarily, you don't have to throw the ball around the yard, right? But I think who's ever been able to make more, whether you can be third down conversions or at least get something out of the passing game to kind of keep drive alive or maybe open up the run game a little bit, I think that's the team that's going to be victorious on Saturday.
Last question for you before we let you go. Game predictions. Who you got and why?
So I said this in the Q&A, and the Gophers fans probably aren't going to like it, but I'm gonna go Wisconsin 21 or 20, I think it was Wisconsin 20 and Minnesota 14. I don't think there's going to be much scoring. Again, as I alluded to earlier, I think it's going to be the clock is going to run. And it's going to be a fairly quick game. I think Minnesota has struggled a little bit. They've had these games this year, whether it be even like Illinois or Bowling Green, just these kind of random games where they don't always seem to put it together offensively. And I think, with Wisconsin's, their ability to stop the run is going to have to force Minnesota to not always be able to rely on that. I think they're going to have to make some plays in the passing game. And if they're able to make enough, I'm not quite sure. So, and I do think that Minnesota's defense can be a little bit bend but don't break-ish, as they are good statistically and they have been really good, but they can also have times where they let up some longer drives. And obviously, if they do it against Wisconsin, that's going to put them in some really tough positions. So, as much as the Minnesota fans might not like it, I'm going to go 20-14 Wisconsin.
Oh, there we go, folks. And Alex, man, I appreciate you being on the show. Real quick before people let you go, obviously you can go to the Gopher Report. It's Minnesota.rivals.com is where folks can go to get everything you need to talk. Y'all are bringing out tons of content for the game, and obviously it's Axe Week, so it's a big week overall just for, I think, both sites, is because the rivalry is strong between the fan bases. But what do y'all got going on before Saturday?
Yep, I appreciate you. So we sent over some questions for you behind enemy lines, which you were gracious enough to answer and sent back to us. We'll have that on the website. We'll post a 3 keys to victory article, which will come out in the next couple of days, or what I deem to be 3 keys if Minnesota's to pull off the win for the Axe. We have a live game stream and thread that we always put together for game times and a prediction preview as well. So tons of good content coming here in the next few days, obviously leading up to the game.
Excellent. And folks, where you can find us before we let you go, make sure for all this content you got going on BadgerBlitz.com, make sure, there's tons of ways you can, like we talked about, Gopher Report, BadgerBlitz.com. A couple of ways you can find us. Subscribe to our YouTube page right now. What you're listening to, what you're hearing. Hopefully when you're on your travel, we're going to get this up by Wednesday morning so that y'all have something to listen to in the airports or you're driving and whatnot. But hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. It helps us grow this, and we have a lot more fun things that we're planning out for this revamped YouTube page. Follow us on Twitter, and for me it's at Jake Coco, and for Alex it's at Alex Carlson, CarlsonTGR, and then for Badger Blitz, it's at Badger_Blitz, and like us on Facebook too. Search Wisconsin Badgers on BadgerBlitz.com. We post all our articles and all our videos up there so that y'all know what's going on in the world inside Camp Randall Stadium and beyond. So y'all have a great week ahead. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. We'll talk to you later this week with more keys to the game and a lot more on this YouTube page. A lot more on BadgerBlitz.com. Y'all take care. Safe travels.